the news broke that Martin Zubimendi is potentially on his way to Arsenal, and that's looking quite likely. I mean, first of all, what's your take on that? It's not the priority that all Arsenal fans have been screaming out for this month, but certainly with the situations of Partey and Jorginho, it will be a priority in the summer, won't it? So, I mean, what's your take on that signing?
Yeah, well, it's absolutely a signing and an area of the pitch that they needed to make at least one addition in the summer because of what's going on with Partey and Jorginho. And if you're looking around for the best sort of number sixes on the market potentially in the summer, then he's right at the very top of that list. So I mean, it was a huge coup for Arsenal if they get it done. Now, it's not done yet. It's looking like it might happen, but nothing signed. Until something is signed, then you can't sit there and celebrate the signing. We saw what happened with Liverpool last summer. You know, they thought that was a done deal with Martin Zubimendi. It ended up not happening. He changed his mind. He didn't want to go, and he stayed. And you know, he's been a long-term target of Arsenal. It did go a little bit quiet, but obviously they've been working very, very hard behind the scenes on it, and now are in a position where it's looking like they might well get this deal done. And I mean, like I said, if it does happen, and the signs are that it probably will, then it's a huge coup. You know, as I said, he's a fantastic player that all the top clubs in Europe want and still want, and I'm sure they're going to spend the next few months trying to persuade him to change his mind. But if Arsenal do get it over the line, and you look at what they're losing in the summer with Jorginho and Partey, and then you're bringing in someone like Martin Zubimendi who can just slot into that number 6 role, be a huge, massive boost for them. And for Mikel Arteta, because you know he has absolutely led this attempt to get him done. I mean, I think it's an interesting one though, because most Arsenal fans were presuming when Partey and Jorginho left, that was going to be the time that Declan Rice drops back to number 6 and really makes that position his own. But if you're signing Martin Zubimendi, I mean, he's not really going to be playing as that box-to-box number 8 role. So you think he's definitely coming in as the number 6, and that maybe means that long-term Arteta has now sort of shifted his mood on Declan Rice and sees him more in that number 8 role long term. So I think that's an interesting development from it if it does indeed happen. But yeah, on the face of it, it's a fantastic piece of business from Arsenal.
Yeah, well, you've expertly preempted my next 2 questions. But well, let's go to that ideal midfield then. So you think it is now Zubimendi at 6 if it does go through, of course, Rice in that 8, and then Odegaard as the creator floating about. That's the first choice 11 if this happens. First choice midfield, sorry, if this happens.
Well, you would think so, definitely. I mean, obviously, you can rotate Zubimendi and Rice if you have them on board, which is a lovely position to be in, isn't it? Being able to rotate those two at number 6. So if you want to give Zubimendi a rest, you can play Rice at 6, and then you've got, you know, Marino and other players you can play in the number 8 role. But you would think if Zubimendi's coming in, then, you know, that's certainly the midfield that Arteta's thinking about. I do like Declan Rice in that number 8 role. I think what he gives, I mean, I like Declan Rice in any. I thought he was fantastic against Aston Villa at the weekend. I think he's really stepped up. While Martin Odegaard's form's dipped recently in the absence of Saka, I think Rice is really getting back to his best after a slow start to the season. I thought he was great against Villa. And any role you can play him on at the moment, he's great. And even in that sort of attacking number 8 role, even though it's not his real game, he still provides more of a threat than most other Arsenal players. He's still popping up in the box and having efforts and things. So I do like him in that role. But I do look at it, certainly against teams who like to sit in a low block and that, and think, can you get a more creative number 8 playing in those games? So I think that's certainly for the sort of going forward in terms of squad building. I think you need another option that Marino hasn't been able to really fill in that role so far. But yeah, I think long term, if you're going into the big games next season, you know, Man City away, Tottenham away, Liverpool away, yeah, I mean, Zubimendi, Rice, Odegaard, certainly you would, if everyone's fit, that's 3 that you would think would be playing in that team.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned all the other clubs in Europe wanted him and still want him. Man City and Liverpool, just in the Premier League, have been heavily linked with him in recent seasons. Why do you think he's gone for Arsenal? I know you mentioned Arteta being a big part of it. There seems to be a bit of a Sociedad connection at Arsenal at the moment as well. Do you think, you know, that's the thing that got that over the line?
I think the Sociedad connection is obviously very important. We've had Arsenal sent Fiorentini over there recently. They've signed Mikel Marino in the summer. I think Zubimendi's name would certainly come up in those conversations. Real Sociedad were well aware that Arsenal wanted Zubimendi. They wouldn't have wanted to lose their 2 key midfielders in the same summer. So I imagine Arsenal smoothed that over by saying, okay, we're not going to come back in for him this summer. We'll have Marino Roberto Alabe is obviously sporting director there. He's been heavily linked with a potential move to Arsenal as well. So there is a very, very strong link. I think Mikel Arteta, he's very good when it comes to talking to players. You know, it's very hard when you're in a one-on-one conversation with Mikel Arteta. It's very hard not to come away from that conversation and really believe what he's told you and think, wow, he's very, very impressive. You know, Declan Rice, you talk to Declan Rice about why he signed for Arsenal, and he will just tell you all the conversations with Mikel Arteta. He just made him believe this was a place to be. This was really exciting. And, you know, the pair of them share a sort of heritage in terms of where they come from and things like that. And I imagine in conversations that have potentially gone on behind closed doors and behind the scenes, that Arteta would have been really, really influential in Zubimendi making the decision that he appears that he's going to make. Again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on this one, because it is not done, and you know that's been made very clear to me. Nothing's been signed or anything like that yet, but the signals are that it's a good chance it'll be happening. And yeah, Mikel Arteta would have been absolutely key to that decision.